That is currently a multiple. In other words, it's more than 100% of what you've invested.
Just a couple of things. I know you said it's for accredited investors. What's like a minimum investment you'd be looking for from somebody?
The unit is $100,000, but our rule is to, if you're accredited, put in what you think you're not going to freak out about, because our experience is you'll invest again. It's a good experience. You'll do well. You'll see some good multiples. And so we're perfectly happy to break up that unit. The key is to participate now. This is a new asset class. And anytime you have a pre-IPO situation in a new asset class, it's like Amazon in 1999, right? It's like kind of the time to get it, right? That's what this is about.
So is this a long-term investment? Like when would they expect to get money returned, or what kind of do the projected returns look like? It's just a little bit different than what a typical deal is that we do, like on with like direct lending on a private real estate transaction, or a private fund or something of that nature. So can you get a little bit more about the investment itself?
That's a very good question. So it's basically three parts. The first part is the capital that we invest in these water systems generates 25% net profit to you on a pooled basis, and you have a lien rights to enforce that royalty based on the asset, because we continue to own that asset. Number two is shares in OriginClear itself. That is currently a multiple. In other words, it's more than 100% of what you've invested. With that comes some warrants. Those are opportunities to buy more. And finally, shares that we grant you in that pre-NASDAQ company. And welcome to the CEO briefing. It is a great pleasure to be here tonight. We've got some incredible news. So I'm actually traveling, so it's a fairly informal setup, but I think we'll do okay with that. All right. So Water the Blue Gold, Thursday, February 15th, and briefing number 249. Yesterday, February 14th, was a red letter day for us. We are very limited in how much we can discuss this publicly. I'll get into that shortly. Eugene Tully says, I'm excited too, Riggs. Yes, a lot of people have been standing by. Boy, it was interesting, let me tell you that. But let's just continue here. Obviously, the usual forward-looking statements are included in this presentation, and as a disclaimer, for example, that discussion I just posted earlier on this video, this disclaimer covers that particular discussion. Okay, let's go ahead and get on to my Twitter account. John Tully read the news today, NFRLA News, for sure. We're so excited, but let's contain ourselves and get through the first part of this. Just looking back, February 8th, remember that I covered this degraded quality of river water, which is a very good report. Growing troubles in commercial real estate. I think that this is a really, really good video, well worth watching. Barry Sternlicht says, we've gone off the deep end. We don't show up for work. We don't apply for jobs, and we don't feel like we have to go back to the office. All of which spells trouble for commercial real estate. And in fact, the latest is that it seems to be spreading to Europe, the US problem. Okay, Dan Early talking about what's going on. Water on demand is blowing up. Well, tell us what happened with water on demand.
Texas, as everybody knows, is a hotbed of development and growth, everything onshoring and coming back to the United States. The big Samsung semiconductor plant in Austin being a good example, which is driving an absolute boom in residential and commercial growth and into the Austin metro area. And it's like that in Dallas, San Antonio, Houston. There is an absolutely enormous demand for smaller on-site micro-scale wastewater utilities to keep up with all the commercial and service-oriented development that's taking place to support all of this growth that's underway. I've been working with these partners. These partners are savvy. They pay attention to the market. They understand what our business model looks like. They understand the water on demand model. And that is the one that has really piqued the interest of a lot of these smaller micro-scale managed service utility customers.
All right, continuing. This is weird because I like gold a lot, but Newmont is in terrible trouble. Newmont is probably the largest of these mining companies. And is just a major disconnect between gold prices and mining industry performance. I can't say it enough. All the assets out there that have been around for a long time are manipulated. And very often the retail investor, you and me, get screwed. Let's put it that way. I don't know what to do with gold. You maintain a position in it, but it's very hard to predict. Okay, this hit on the 13th pretty intensely. It had a big effect on futures for a little while. Strangely enough, it all kind of recovered yesterday, but inflation is harder than expected. Overall price is almost 20% up since Biden took office. Okay, we know all that, but it's not clear what it's doing to the stock market. I think that the market is still wagering. We are definitely, in my opinion, at a market top. Definitely. But that's just my opinion. Don't bet on my opinion. Okay, this is an interesting comment. We saw a lot of Amazon entrepreneurs sell their businesses to bigger companies that then failed. Why? Because those bigger companies were operating on a recipe, whereas those entrepreneurs were zigzagging. That's what you've got to do. And the road to success is not a straight line, it's broken field running. And that's kind of what we've been, I think Ken would agree and AJ would agree that's really what we do very, very well. This is what happened on February 13th. Stock futures crashed because of the CPI data. But then again, the market is okay. Don't ask me why. Now, this is a really cool meal, and I don't usually do this. Sorry, not sorry for the cooking swerve. Basically, I want to make this shakshuka dish. Super cool. Eggs poached in a spiced tomato sauce. Really, if there's one good reason to get on my feed, it is to see this recipe. Anyway, let's play this one.
We have a number of different opportunities that we are actively pursuing right now, which are being driven by the end user who are just absolutely enthralled with the concept of the whole package. It is the finance, it's the engineering, equipment, installation, and long-term managed services.
These tend to be smaller units, right? And also much simpler, which is a big concern of mine.
It is. Systems are usually at 5,000 gallons per day or less, which is not a lot of water. But the real estate value potential that you can realize from an on-site 5,000 gallon per day system could be worth tens of millions of dollars. It's amazing what this little small micro utility does to contribute to the overall developed value of it, whether it's a light manufacturing facility or if it's a new facility serving the communities that are growing and springing up all around Austin and these regions like that. So smaller systems, much simpler, easier to manage. It is a perfect match for water on demand.
That was a very good interview. Returning water to its pure state enables more water for all. What does that say? Well, we treat the massively untreated wastewater flows. We help reduce leakage of valuable freshwater in transit. And businesses can save water by recycling their own wastewater and achieve environmental credits in doing so. That is a nice, clean statement of what we do in a very clear and simple way. So that was kind of our thinking as we tried to distill our message. All right, very bullish post by Mike Dillard, reinforced by my friend Matt McKibben. He basically is pointing to astonishing continued rise in Bitcoin. And as always, you never know what's going to happen next, but it does seem like Bitcoin is kicking in. And, make sure you have some. What can I say? I'm not going to say, I do it myself, right? Let's take a look here. The Canadian dollar is very weak right now. It's about 79 cents to the dollar. And Peter St. Onge, I'm not going to play this video, but basically the message here is that Canadians are getting crushed by taxes, inflation, and housing costs that turn middle-class salaries into barely scraping by. And this particular video features some testimonials, which we won't get into right now, but it's not a pretty picture for Canada. Mainly because the real estate market just went nuts and people are literally selling their homes so they can survive. It's the weirdest thing. Okay, now, RFK Jr. posted about the Lahaina wildfire. And what he is saying, and I think he's absolutely right, that we are at risk. First of all, there's so much politics right now that we can't just, he's basically saying, please, can we focus on the problems? What we're talking about here, why I posted it, because I'm not into the politics of this. I'm not going to comment on RFK or anything like that. But central services tend to fail. And that is why it's so important that we have water independence. Moving along here, apparently the U.S. needs to figure out how to disconnect its industrial control systems from its networks, and fast. The CTO of MITRE, which is a nonprofit defense organization called MITRE, but it was posted into Defense One. And basically he's saying, watch out for infrastructure attacks. And this is another reason why it's becoming actually a national priority to create self-sustaining independent water systems. Now, remember, we are not saying that we're going to privatize the incoming water. We believe that's a bad idea. We believe that government should continue to provide the fresh water. People are free to dig wells, get their own water, but we're not interested in privatizing the freshwater supply. Why? Because it's been a bad thing. It has not worked well for the cities in America that have done so. They've had poorer service when they privatized that. All right, so that's a tour of the X. Jane says, my sister was just a mile from the fire. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. And I'm really hopeful that thing worked out for her. Keith Rutan says, in a little while, they'll be calling OriginClear the new Bitcoin. From your lips to God's ears, Keith, I must say, it's a beautiful thing. Bada bing, bada boom. Our S4 registration was filed. This came out of my Face feed. It's also been duplicated on the OriginClear feed. But basically, let me just summarize it for you. We filed a merger registration statement. Now, remember that on 23 October, I think it was, we signed a business combination agreement to merge with a NASDAQ, quote unquote, blank check company. Then what we had to do was get ready for the SEC reviewing it. In other words, we had to register it. It's also an opportunity for the shareholders to approve it. And if they don't approve it, they can sell their piece. That's called redemption. But there's two things happening now. SEC review will occur and the NASDAQ application process. Now, along the way, we're going to have to update this S4 with the annual report numbers and perhaps, depending on how long it takes, the Q4 numbers. But that's already understood. It's baked into the Q2 expectation for this completion of this merger, should it succeed. All right. I wanted to thank the team, first of all, in finance, Prasad Ter, CFO, Eric Sandler, David and John Peraza, and our operating divisions, PWT and MWS. By having amazing performance, we achieved this 32 million. It is really based on their revenue achievements. I want to make a special shout out to our Philanthro Investors team, because they really have, between Ivan and Artie's early efforts, Sky, who's taken over with Vendi, and the whole Philanthro Investors team have been really fabulous. And they are just amazing partners. And finally, of course, the amazing Ken Berenger, Devin Angus, AJ Fikejs, who is our VP Marketing, Kevin Pruitt. There's, of course, more. There's Lana, there's Charles, there's a whole team for their vision and execution and keeping the funding going. This is why we were able to do this, because it has cost us a lot of money to maintain. We had to basically take over the bill paying for the blank check company. We paid the board, we paid the legal fees, we paid everything. And fortunately, we have amazing investors, and I can't say enough about that. I want you to know how much I appreciate your loyalty and steadfast service to our mission. So there it is, Water on Demand and FRLA, Fortune Rise. The ticker symbol is FRLA. The company is called Fortune Rise. And here it is, Fortune Rise Acquisition Corporation. You can see right here, if you want to go to see this S4, just go to oc.gold/S4, and it'll take you right there. So you don't have to type in long things or go searching on their site. Here is the opening. This is basically what this is directed at, right? This document, which is going to be approved by the SEC, is directed at the shareholder base of FRLA. All right, so we have, right, the business combination agreement was on October 24th. I correct myself from before. Basically, states that there's a merger, that the combined company will change its name to Water on Demand Inc., and we will have the ticker symbol reserved already, WODI, on the NASDAQ. Now, I am not going to get into this S4 right now, and I would love to, but I need better guidance from legal as to what I can say. It's very simple. There are very stringent rules about what can be said. If I say something positive from this S4 without mentioning all the disclaimers, then I've kind of short-circuited the whole document. And so what I've seen done in the past is where the CEO ends up sitting with the lawyer, the counsel for the acquiring company, and there's an interview done, and that's the way to do this, so that we maintain proper disclosure, right? So I urge you to go to the S4. I'm not making any further comments about this. I think it's what I've said in Facebook is very much how I feel. You have to study the S4. So long story short is we will be dissecting this further, but with legal counsel guidance. And I know you appreciate the importance of that. Okay. And Kevin just posted the press release that was put out. And that's actually, that's Kevin, that's a really good idea. We can, of course, show the press release. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at that? And I think that's going to allow me a bit more leeway. Until you consider insider information. Let me put it this way: it's not insider information, but if I cherry pick information in the S4, then I'm potentially failing to fully inform, and you don't want me to read the entire S4 to you. So remember, I will get guidance on it. But here's the approved press release, so we can certainly get into that. OriginClear's Water on Demand and Fortune Rise acquisition seek to combine under Form S4. So we announced the filing of registration statement, which includes the proxy statement that's for the voters, remember, and a prospectus. So this is a genuine prospectus that is well worth studying. Believe me, it has great information in it. And it's about the proposed business combination with our subsidiary Water on Demand and the special purpose acquisition company. All right, that's the summary of it that I've basically already said. Upon closing of this business combination, the combined company is expected to list on the NASDAQ under the new ticker symbol WOTI. I still can't get over how cool this is. Obviously, the transaction is expected to close in the second half of 2024 and is subject to approval by the FRLA shareholders, as well as a number of other closing conditions, including approval by the NASDAQ stock market, because there are requirements which we believe we meet, but that is a risk, right? Okay. While the registration had not yet become effective, it provides important information, which is why I recommend you study it. The valuation that we achieved was a total combined equity valuation of about $72 million, assuming no further redemptions of FRLA public shares, which we do expect. Now, we have no idea how much redemptions there'll be, but our part of it is $32 million valuation based on the 3.2x multiple of our 2022 revenue. And we have a controlling percentage of this subsidiary currently. It's around 53.5%, I believe. And the other percentages consist of, a small piece for the employees. It's, I think, 11% total. And of course, our investors have most of the remainder of that. Okay. So even after the merger is complete, we expect to have a very, not controlling anymore. We think that it will be not a majority share, but a large piece of the company. All right. So what are we going to do with the money? We're going to grow the Water on Demand network. We're going to grow the business units, and we're going to get into acquisitions. And these acquisitions are key. They will be network management software, because we got to run this Water on Demand, management and engineering staffing, and vertical integration through acquisition of component fabricators. Remember that about a month ago, we had a letter of intent with a company that is a fabricator in our supply chain. And this is all the boilerplate, which I won't get into. Another clip from the Two CEOs podcast that I started last week. But before I do that, I'm just going to check the chat here. Gene Tilly, go pat yourself on the back, Briggs, you deserve it. I'm not patting myself on the back until we actually get there. Ken Boger says second half. Q2. Q2 is what is officially stated in the press release and everything else. We've been saying Q2 all along, and that is what we understand. Let's play this. It's kind of cool, because here's what's interesting about it. Jim Mathers, who's a super cool guy in his own right, happens to have about 200,000 customers for his privatized energy. Like a business can use a different energy provider, and literally they drop a pod on site to generate the energy, and it's cheaper than getting it from Duke Energy or whoever. And he said, it's exactly what you guys are doing with water. So he's very excited, and he wants to actually help us connect with those 200,000 customers of his, because all he's got to say is, hey, what you're doing in energy, you can also do for water. Let's sign you up. So that's a beautiful thing. Let's take a look at what he has to say. And by the way, go to jimmathers.com. He's got a free ebook. Super cool dude. Here we go.
The ability to look and see what's in front of you is important.
I say, no, that's not going to work. Stop right now. It's not going to work. But then also, when something is worth persisting on, say, no, we're going to keep on going with this. And they'll go, no, it's good. We got this. Let's do it.
My marketing VP and I actually did this course about YouTube marketing from a doctor. Okay, so here's a doctor in England who's from India. So he's an Indian doctor, went to school in Oxford. But while he was going through medical school, he wanted to help people. So he was doing YouTube videos on how to use your iPad or your iPhone to take notes best in class. So he finally graduates. 3 years later, he graduates to get his degree. He's a medical doctor. But he's making $1 million a year on YouTube. And sometimes you go, why didn't we actually listen to this course? Because now we're doing a year and a half later what the guy said to do. And of course, our stats are rising steadily. And I'm going, we ignored YouTube for a year and a half. Now, we're doing great, but the thing is, it's how do we communicate to people what it is that we're really trying to do? It's like, for me, I have two hats. It's kind of funny. When I'm a poor kid from Michigan. Like people say millionaires. I said, oh yeah, those people have that nice life. I went to the Naval Academy because it was free.
Right.
Well, it wasn't really free. I had to give 5 years of my life after I graduated.
Yeah.
And which I did get paid during that time.
Sort of.
Not very much, but I got paid a lot of experience. Sometimes your pay comes in different forms.
Did you serve at sea?
Oh, I was on a submarine. I was chasing Russians in '85.
Nice.
And
Boomers.
I was chasing their boomers. I was chasing missile submarines. I was a fast attack. We were one of the quietest 2 submarines in the world at the time. So we had all this advanced technology. We were super quiet. And so we could sneak right up on everybody.
You didn't drop a wrench.
Well, I dropped a plotter one time, and the captain hit me in the back of the head with a clipboard. But I learned. One mistake. I learned. Don't make a lot of noise. You could hear stuff. It's amazing. The Russian submarines that were fast were so loud, we could hear them half an ocean away. You could hear them. And it was like, wow, this stuff is crazy. So, I did that, all excitement. I've had wild things happen at sea. You see, Hunt for October was awesome. Half of it's bullshit, but the other half is spot on.
Right.
Clancy was great at the emotional impact of what was going on with people. It was exactly how we felt. Yeah. All the nuclear technical stuff at that time wasn't not true.
But who cared?
The story, the emotion, right? I'm going, how does he know? Literally in 1985. Really? And so when I got out and I was working for other people, I started, especially I got really good at sales because I really like people. If you really like people and you want to help people, you can be really good at sales because really you're not trying to flim-flam anybody. You're just saying, good, you need this, I got this. Now the question is, which one do you need? And people go, oh, I see. I always made it like it's a choice. If you have different choices.
You always.
I wouldn't sell people something they wouldn't need. And I have one of my favorite stories was this little lady. I was selling dry cleaning discount cards. Well, in order to do a dry cleaning discount card, you need to wear a suit. So I'm in a yuppie neighborhood, but I knock on the first door and it's an 85-year-old lady. Well, I'm nice to people, so I'm talking to her about her kids and her dog and grandkids, and and I said, okay, look, I have to go to work. And I did pitch her, because I automatically pitch everybody, but I was like, I got to go. It's great talking to you. She goes, no, I want to buy one. I said, I can't sell it to you. She goes, I want to buy one. And then I realized I was nice to her, so she's going to give me money in exchange for being nice to her. But I said, I could have honestly walked away. Yeah. And I said, but you don't do enough dry cleaning. I assumed. And she goes, I take a lot of dry cleaning. I said, define a lot. She goes, my kids gave me a blanket that I treasure and I take it to the dry cleaner. I said, how often? She goes, every 4 years. Now, for an 80-year-old, every 4 years is a lot.
Right.
I said, well, there's 25 trips to the dry cleaner on here. That's going to take you another 100 years. I said, tell you what, you don't have any chocolate chip cookies, do you? She goes, I just baked some. This is Saturday morning. I said, can I have a cookie? So I went in, had a cookie and a glass of milk with her, and I'm thinking, in my mind, clock is ticking, you're losing money because you're not knocking on all the yuppies' doors.
Sure.
But I was and then finally I said, okay, I really got to go. She goes, okay, honey, thank you for your time. And I said, thank you for the cookies. I get out, go to the next door, and I go to knock, it opens. The door opens, which never happens in cold calling door to door. And the lady goes, hi, Jim. How do you know me? Oh, Hazel, next door, she called and said, you're coming. And I do a lot of dry cleaning. Seriously, I go every week. I go, okay, you need 2. She goes, I know, I need 2. So, and I said, but I got to explain the back. She goes, no, she explained the back. She explained all the qualifications. She goes, yeah. So she read it up. I said, okay. And I literally took money from every door in that neighborhood because she was the grandma of the neighborhood. And because I refused to sell her something she didn't need, she called everybody and said, you need it, guys. I know how much money you spent on dry cleaning. Best day I ever had. But it was also one of the best lessons I ever had. Because there's referral marketing too, where if you do a great job for somebody, and it can't be a mediocre job, I forget this famous guy, another speaker says, you just don't suck, If you just don't suck, you'll do better than most people. But you won't get referrals.
No.
So, but if you can do better than expected, then people will tell their friends about you. That's a key.
And this is interesting because we have built a strategic relationship with this group called Philanthro Investors.
I know those guys.
Artie Marin, Ivan Ans.
Yeah.
And they did, of course, a real estate play, Equity and Help, which does great. And then they were looking for, strangely enough, something in water.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And then they had a very bad experience with a water company. Ivan one day, just by chance, ends up on my Zoom briefing. He goes back to Artie and says, I rented this guy. He's got a water company, and it looks perfect for us. It's totally in alignment. And Artie says, what's his name? Riggs Eckelberry. He's like, I've known Riggs Eckelberry since 1968. What are you talking about? Let's talk about complete serendipity. Yeah. But the point of my story is we were so aligned that they literally opened up the door to all of their investors who'd done well with E&H, and they've since done well with us. And furthermore, they bring us onto podcasts that deliver wonderfully for us. So they really understand the concept of water on demand. They get it. And I think just like that grandma, she got you 100%, right?
Yeah.
Ivan and Artie got us. And as a result, Sky Logan, Vendy Rios, they're wonderful people. It's not easy to get. You didn't find that grandmother very often, did you?
No.
So it's not a scalable model. We're glad we got Philanthro Investors, but we didn't get another one.
But the story also opens the door for other investors to come in and say, okay, if you did that for them, he's probably going to do it for me.
So true. Yeah. Yes. What's very, very important I've learned is do right by your investors.
Yeah.
Right? We've had to pay our dues for a long time to get where we are today. And normally, the angels would have been crammed long ago. It's the fate of an angel to be crammed. I don't even know why people are early investors in anything because it's a disaster. But we made very, very sure that those who were willing to stay with us and keep investing, that they were completely protected from all losses.
Wow.
As a result, these people are ahead, and they're now been investing in this NASDAQ play. And this is true of our partner Philanthro Investors. I have a rule to just be generous. Be generous. What are you being generous with anyway? For example, we have a restricted stock plan for all of our staff, right? Stock options, but you don't have to pay for them kind of thing.
Right.
So it's stock that gets liberated based on certain criteria, such as get on the NASDAQ. Okay. My sponsors, the original funders of the company said, well, just give it to yourself, Riggs. I go, no. Every single person in the company has some. And that's how I feel about it.
Right.
Because they're co-creating it with you, right? And if we're primarily an equity play, we have huge forecasts, but primarily it's a public company and it's about the stock.
Right.
Right? So there's an opportunity here. And we're now, talking with other people that I'm not going to mention right now because the deals aren't done. But we saw each other recently at such an event.
Yes, exactly.
And they're going to get a huge upside for helping us along. I think that you really brought up a very important point, is that if you display integrity, people will do anything for you.
Well, and the proof is in the pudding. One, yes, you said it's a 16-year overnight success, but you have people, you have a team that understands the vision and the goal, and that are willing to put in that blood, sweat, and tears to get you to the goal. You know, I have some of my key people have been with me for 25 years, and we're just a call center for selling electricity and natural gas. You know, but if you treat people, because when I was treated wrong as a sales manager or a salesperson, and I thought, when I have my company someday, I'm going to treat people the way I want to be treated. And you go, well, that's just a golden rule, but it works, and it builds a loyalty that you can't, you know, at the last minute say, well, here's some extra money to try to bribe someone into doing something. It's like over and over again, you have to prove to your team that you're gonna go the extra mile for them too. And I know some people that are very selfish and they don't look at anybody else in the team, but you know, one, they're not as happy. Two, I'm a happy guy. I go to bed at night smiling because I know that I did the best.
Well, you got a wonderful wife too.
Well, yeah, it's yeah. Thank you. That definitely helps.
No question about it.
That's a teamwork that you know. My wife and I started this company 26 years ago, together with an investor, and we had it. Thank God we had an investor.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like no matter what happens later, when you have that original investor, I'm always thankful that he was willing to put up the money for us to take an idea that I saw work somewhere else. It wasn't like water works.
Right.
You have a huge problem you're solving. Huge. That, for whatever reason, the government's kind of ignoring because they got other stuff to worry about. But when you have a problem, or if you have a workability, and you can take that and just sometimes with a little bit of seed money, you can turn that into millions of dollars and a life. I mean, like a lot of my employees have literally said, Jim, this is the best part of my day.
Yeah.
You know,
scary.
So,
It's scary.
Which is scary because you got to have a whole life.
Yeah.
But one of my top guys is, you know, he literally leaves work and then goes and speaks at different, you know, volunteer functions. You know, goes to this whole, and he has his morning routine. He says, you know, I do my exercise in the morning. I come here, and he's one of my top producers and making a lot of money. He's already talking about buying a $150,000 boat, and he's like, I'm all excited. And I said, okay, you know, and he's been with me only for a year and a half, so he's kind of a newer guy. But he came in, joined the team, and you know, figured out how to make it work. And he says, I appreciate this opportunity you gave me. He goes, and I'm not gonna, you know, I'm gonna do everything I can. But
yeah, those are the
same thing as a good wife.
And same thing as, you know, my colleague Ken Berenger, who you spoke to earlier, you know, he's been around for many, many years in sales. And two things happened. Number one is we really needed him at the time. And he needed a good cause to forward.
Yeah, yeah.
So it worked both ways, right? He is energized by the fact that he's helping to create this breakthrough. And I'm grateful that he came along because, and the friend who referred us as well, because he came along at the right time. And Jim, this is a big lesson I learned, which is for many, many years, I was an only one. And I realized this relatively recently, that I had been sort of trying to be the Superman, which creates these huge upswings, then you crash because you run out of time, resources, et cetera, right?
There's only so much you can do by yourself.
Yeah. I remember the business I had in the 80s, which was computerizing companies for the first time, was a great business. But I was literally the guy specifying even down to the surge suppressor for these things. And I just got, God damn it, I'm done with this. And I gave the business away. And the guy then that I gave it to, Juan, he's made millions from that business.
Wow.
Because I was not thinking as a team player, right? So starting around 2018 is when I started attracting incredible people into my company. And that's when things really took off. Dan Early, the guru of pod systems, Ken Berenger, the co-creator of Water on Demand, Prasad Tar, who's our
he's amazing too.
CFO,
I know, he's a good friend of mine. Yeah.
Right? I mean, Tom Marchicello, our COO, all these people are like, you know, I can actually think, I can actually plan, I can actually strategize, I can have bright ideas, which is a function of a CEO. In addition to making sure that people don't do stupid things. Don't run into rocks. Again,
the ability to look and see what's in front of you is important.
I say, no, that's not going to work. Stop right now. It's not going to work. So, but then also, when something is worth persisting on, say, no, we're going to keep on going with this. And And they'll go, no, no, it's good. We got this. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And, I'm a big fan of 18th century naval stories, the age of ships.
Yeah.
Where it was all about this amazing competence. And it was, these ships were not powered by wind, they were powered by people.
Yeah.
Literally every single thing was sweated. The determination of the captain was so key, and then if you manage to pull together good lieutenants and stuff like that, send them out on a cutting out expedition, they go ashore and they take that fort, that's all based on a very strong intention, and to kind of blow through the problems that seemingly might be, oh, well, that's a no-go. No. It's just a barrier. We can blow through it. That's important too.
Yeah. No, you have to have a good leader with good vision, and you have to have someone who recognizes that with the team. When the team recognizes the vision, it's hard to stop, a group.
Yeah.
There's so much more. It's not 1 + 1 = 2.
No, it's geometric.
Geometric. It's amazing. So anyway, I love this idea. So as far as our company, because we've been doing business and commercial industrial sales for so long, we're waiting for you guys to ramp this thing up so we can start selling some pods for you.
Yes. So here's where we stand right now with Water on Demand, which is this investor financed systems so that people don't have to put up capital. We have a first pilot project, which is mobile home parks. Because why? They're all the same.
Yep.
And it's a small
cookie cutter.
Exactly. It's a small application. It's 5,000 gallons per day, which in Texas is just below the heavy permitting. So it's a little Goldilocks area that's not heavily permitted. So you can throw them in, plug them in, permitting's nothing. And
then they meet the requirements for the local government.
They can just literally dump to the groundwater because it's treated, and everybody wins.
Wow.
And that's why I want this NASDAQ thing so important, because I want to build inventory.
Yeah.
Think about inventory of $200,000 or $500,000 systems, literally in the back lot. And they'll, oh, Mr. Mathers, you're ready? You would like to do a system? Yeah. Would you like it next week? I guess so. Well, goodbye competition, right?
Exactly.
So that's where we stand right now. We get that pilot done, which is going to happen this year, with all the caveats that I have to give. Then we're wide open. Let's do it.
Right.
As you pointed out, it's the most we've talked in ever, which is interesting, isn't it? So social media brought us together, and actually Kevin Harrington brought us together.
Yes, Kevin Harrington's awesome.
Yeah.
Boom America is a great platform.
I had so much fun that day being an expert. I was being an expert.
I'm on the A-team, baby. So we're A-team members with Kevin Harrington. I'm glad you were here today. Thank you very much for your time.
Such a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah.
We'll catch up soon.
For sure.
What was interesting is we got into a lot of good stuff there that normally we wouldn't get into, a lot of philosophical things, but it also illustrates that there's a potential for rolling up networks, distribution networks like this, right? So Jim's company potentially can simply start upselling, and they get additional revenue from an existing customer base that's kind of static. I mean, to make more money, they have to get more customers, but this leverages their existing customer base. So that's an interesting direction. He's not in the water industry. So this is why we absolutely want to keep working with the water industry distributors, manufacturing sales reps, water companies, et cetera. We also want to open up these other interesting opportunities. So that's kind of cool. Surprise, surprise, we have arrived at the freewheeling discussion.
I'm excited. There's plenty to talk about tonight. This is great.
Yeah. So much to talk about. I just have to tell you that I'm so jittery about,
exuberant.
Like, I don't want to screw the pooch at all.
Right. So I shot him a quick message. I said, just put the release up there. And
well done.
Here. Right. So, and it's funny, a couple things you talked about. When you talked about a major multiplication of value of properties where these systems, I think it was Dan who was talking about it at the time. I've met with a lot of the Money Club Monday folks, and they're they're straight up real estate oriented. And I say, I got 50 acre, our lots in Murraysville go for about $150,000 an acre. That's what you pay. Buy a 50-acre lot, it's going to cost you about $4 million, right? But if you could buy them for $400,000 and install one of these systems, you're $4 million ahead. And their eyes just lit up. So I believe that property management, property developers, I should say,
Sure.
will become this, stalking horse. It really will. We'll be calling Schuster Homes and stuff like that, and providing a strategic advantage to dirt buyers. I should keep my mouth shut and buy up dirt first, but I'm too generous. I'm too generous of spirit. Anyway, there's plenty of dirt to buy. The other thing was that you were talking about with Jim about the team, right? And when you get into a rhythm, it's like, you used to do the rowing. Once you get a certain rhythm with your rowers, you don't have to pay attention to whether or not their rhythm is right or if their form is right. You trust your rowers. We are now at a place where we trust those around us. I don't have to. And look, if you're constantly checking, there's a problem, right? But if you're not, right, that's okay. Checking in from time to time to make sure that people don't run astray, because monotony creates bad habits, right? When people are in a monotonous type of operation, they can start to slip. But we've had that conversation where you're like, well, gee, I don't know. And I'm like, no, we need to do this. And you're like, okay, right? We've had that conversation where we AJ and I are off, we're out chasing a specific methodology to try to expand our reach. And you've said, well, gee, should we do it? And we were like, yeah. And you're like, okay. And we've also gotten to a place where we find folks that want to do business with us, let's say, and very quickly, one of the attributes I think that was the greatest gift you've given to the team is you tell them not to be afraid to say, yeah, that guy's not going to work out. We got to go. Yes, we spent some money, but no, they got to go now, right? Not, it's like, hanging on to the really toxic relationship, right? That kind of thing. So,
well, I myself am a very bad firer because I do worry about, sunk costs, but at the same time, you have to fill or kill, because what's more important is the mission, right? Sure. We have to serve the mission, and if a particular partner or a vendor is not doing the right thing, of course we try and fix it, we try and work it out, but then if it doesn't work out, we have to move on, and it's kind of it's brutal. I hate it. It's one of the things I dislike about the job, but got to do it.
No, I mean, look, and I've said this to you, and I've joked with you. You're almost allergic to it, right? Yes. You really don't. I mean, you really don't. I mean, I'm like, you really don't like doing it. It really bothers you, So you come to that decision with a little bit more care than the guy goes, screw it, that kind of thing, right?
Right.
I think is appropriate, but you don't. You don't stick with the sinking ship type thing, right? You do know to swim away. And it's funny thing, you were talking about the captains of the 18th century. I watched a TV series called Black Flags, and it was about the original pirates of the Caribbean, how all piracy began with a charter by the king to basically attack Spanish ships. And you said that, the level of competency that developed. Well, here's the reason. The reason all the captains were eventually competent is because the ones that weren't were already dead.
That's true.
Right. So, there's that. You can find them. They're at the bottom of the ocean. Right.
Right.
So,
that's so true.
That's with business too. Right. So those who remain, those who survive, mistake after mistake are the competent ones. And they're competent because they know how to, they know how to roll with the punches, right? They know how to adapt. They know how, like you said about those Amazon businesses, they know how to zigzag. There were two brothers that founded the company Snapple on Long Island, two guys from Valley Stream, which was the next town over from me. They built up this, and they had a method. They would go to the delis and the drivers would sell the product, this iced tea. It's iced tea, right? And it built into $1 billion business. They sold it to Nestle for, I think it was $3.2 billion. Wow. Nestle went, yeah, we know how to sell beverages. We're going to change everything. Right? They took away the driver's commissions, everything. It all dried up. They tanked it. The two brothers bought the business back for $600 million and started all over again. Right? So it was like, it was like this. They followed that whole track back up and down because they knew the model that worked. They understood their business. And the reason that they survived where Nestle failed is they were insiders in their business, not outsiders. Right? And that's
that's not that like that Amazon story I was telling on Twitter. Exactly. But here's look. I want to circle back to the news of the day because, for me, this is not the end of the road by any means. There's plenty of rocks and shoals ahead, but it was a huge value. S4s are, in fact, Tony Fidelio, who is one of the directors of OriginClear and the current Water on Demand, he said S4s are incredibly tough. And we learned that. It was so hard. But the good news is
every day, I know.
but the good news is it's now an actual thing.
And you're good at it. And the team is good at it now. Right? So now the next one's like, plug and play. Right? And our interfacing now with NASDAQ, right? There's a lot of overlap. There's tremendous similarity to process. Right? Now, there will be different things to interface on, but the process is largely the same. So while the first one was a trial, it was the Tony Robbins hot coal walk, right? The second one is the next interface will be, far more autopiloted because there'll be certain things that you can basically drop in place and it's not a learn as you go thing, but it's also remaining nimble. I do MMA and they always keep your head moving. Just keep moving your head, and you just gotta keep moving. So I would say that yesterday marked the end of the beginning portion of this tale, right?
Well, what did Winston Churchill say? He said, "This is not the end, nor even the beginning of the end. It's the beginning of the beginning."
Well, no, we're past the beginning of the beginning. I think we're at the end of the beginning, and now we're at the beginning of the middle. I think.
Yeah, he said end of the beginning. That's right. He said end of the beginning.
The end of the beginning, right?
Yes.
And I think in a lot of ways, as a company, and the way we structure our vehicle from here should be more as a mid-market type of attitude. Because I think if we're not there yet, I think we're very close to being more of that mid-market type of player. Which first of all, it attracts a different player. It attracts a different type of investor. And of course, it disappoints the ones who want early. But you've only had 4 years, so most of the early players. Most of our early investors are incredibly well positioned. I was having conversations the other day with the Money Club folks, and I was actually looking at some of these analyses. We have people that, and to your point with Jim Mathers, some of these guys were down 99% when I came on in 2018. One particular person that was down, he's up over $1.1 million.
Wow!
Right now on paper, right? And that's before this thing happens, right? So I go, wow, we really did. We really, we couldn't have done it without them, but we really got these guys. We really got these folks in a good spot, and God knows they deserve it. God knows they deserve it. So.
Well, part of it is, of course, talent. AJ came to us from a major corporate environment. And we're going to have more of that. Our acquisition program is intended to get us, not only engineering headcount and manufacturing headcount, developer headcount, but also C-suite headcount. Because, for example, I can't be a CEO of 2 companies. Even Elon Musk had to give that up, and it's just not viable long term. Short term, no problem. So, and same thing for AJ. You're going to have to ultimately, replace yourself in one place or the other, just because of focus, right? So we're all Ken, same thing. We're going to have to
clone me,
be in the, yeah, exactly, or build a machine at least that can leverage that. But so that's the exciting part. Now next week, I'm going to get into, I was not quite able to get to it today, but we have an amazing story about how we were the original crazy people who were talking about decentralized water back in 2016. Then we delivered on it, and now we have a viable, we're the most innovative decentralized water player out there, period. We're just outstanding that way. And now we in 2020, we theorized and predicted the next phase, water as a service. Now, water as a service exists all over the place. It's been around forever. It's not theoretical, but no one else is offering it to regular investors. So this is where we are positioned, is as the very similar to the oil well master limited partnerships. We are building an MLP for water.
No one else has shrunk it down either, Riggs. That's not insignificant. Nobody else has brought it down where it's not these massive city-like operations, which, look, how many places produce 10 million gallons a day? Thousands,
Sure.
tens of thousands, not tens of millions. So it wasn't globally scalable under that. You had a very specific target, right? I also believe, you said we're the most innovative, water as a service company. I think we're the only company that reimagined water treatment as an asset class in the way that we've completely reimagined. We're the only major, in my view, that I'm aware of. We're the only major from the ground up, from the atomic level up, to reimagine how water is treated at a point of discharge. It's always been incremental change of that master model. Like, this is how you do it now. So every change is little incremental, little tweaking at the edges. We basically ripped up the blueprint and from the atomic level reimagined the entire thing. And it all began with Dan's evangelizing of these smaller pods, and micro utilities. And I think when you talk about micro utility, I think that's how people are able to make the connection and envision what we do.
Exciting times. Well, AJ, you've been remarkably silent.
Listen, sometimes you learn when you're a young lad that when people of wisdom are speaking, you sometimes just need to take a minute and listen.
You're saying old people. You're saying old people.
I said people of wisdom. There's a difference. It just so happens I'm the whippersnapper here, but that's not part of the discussion. No, I really wanted to circle back to what you said earlier about just kind of taking a moment in taking in the S4. There's so much effort that went into that. There's so much attention and detail needed to compile that, and it's such a milestone that I don't want us to do what we are used to doing, which is plowing through a milestone and then being like, all right, next, right? Like, no, let's savor this one today. We're
actually doing that. We're right. We're pretending not to.
Right. Because we're always on to the next thing. But
right.
That's one thing that I appreciate. You talk about coming from a corporate environment, right? When you're in a corporate environment, everything feels like it's a slog, right? Like you're just constantly trudging through tar to try and get anything done. And part of that is because there's so much stuff that you have to do. There's so many hoops that you have to jump through to be able to do things in certain environments. And something like the S4 is just one of those things. Right. And you really get an appreciation for just how much it takes to make something like that happen. And it's hard to communicate that to people that don't have to experience it, right? That it's like, look, guys, you got to get so many ducks in a row. You have to get so much due diligence. You have to get so much preparation. You have to do so many things to feed into this one thing that turns into this document that you get to submit and go, oh, we made it, right? And we can't undersell the fact that there's just a tremendous amount of effort. But behind all of that effort, and the reason it got there is because everything that we've been doing, whether we've been failing quickly and making moves as a company over the past number of years, has all just been this kind of zigzagging, let's find the things that work, let's respond to the markets, let's respond to these ideas and find those things that work. PWT just works. MWS is growing like hotcakes because it works. And the fun part about that is, as exciting as those two companies are, they pale in comparison to the opportunity and to the excitement that I can have about water on demand as a fintech, right? That whole concept overshadows greatly the technical prowess of NWS being able to micro scale this thing down, and their scalability, this still goes beyond that. And that's the thing that's like, it's tough to wrap your head around sometimes, especially if you're not thinking actively in that space. And so when we're talking to you guys in the audience, when Ken's talking to prospective investors, the thing that you got to realize is that outside of the tangible, which is these companies making these wonderful devices that have fantastic reputations and multitudes of various use cases across a number of different markets, right? The thing that gets me excited is the potential of water on demand as the fintech, because that potential is not fairy dust. It's very real. It is a very real concept. It has other applications that it's been applied on. And the fact that we get to be the first to do that in this space is incredible. And you talk about getting excited to have a purpose and have a cause to want to be somewhere every day. Yeah, that's it, right? You want to change the world of water. You want to be able to help companies. Like, we had a guy was at a kid's birthday party. I might have said this last week, right? Telling me literally the story of most of these companies. We're getting beat up by the EPA. He goes, they not only did we meet the standard that they gave us, then they rewrote the standard, so we had to be even more stringent. And honestly, at this point, we think they're just doing it to be jerks. And it's like,
no, that couldn't possibly be.
And so you get to this point where you start hearing this stuff and you realize just how much of a problem these kinds of things are, and just how much help it could be to a company to be able to come up and say, look, I can solve your problem and I can do it for you by you signing a contract. And it's like, that's huge. And then have the chops to be able to back that up is even more impressive. So yes, I've been quiet, but it's not because I don't have anything to say. Sometimes you just want to soak it in. And so that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
Well, and to your point about it's early in the game, I'm reminded of Jeff Bezos and Mackenzie Scott, who founded Amazon in their garage, and their ethos and their culture is what created the eventual Amazon, huge monster success. What we're doing now in microcosm definitely is how we'll be down the road, and I think we have a good culture. So thank you, AJ. That's very well put.
Describe us right now. It's nimble.
Nimble is very true. Nimble, but and as I was saying to Jim, you want to learn when you've made a mistake, but also if something is hard, persist with it, right? Both matter.
Yeah.
All right. So please fill out your Zoom survey. We do read them. They're very important to us. And as Gene Tully says, keep your eyes and ears open and your mouth shut. You might learn something. Very, very true. Thank you, everyone, for being here on this landmark day. I believe we're going to look back on this as being just a great beginning. The end of the beginning, as Winston Churchill and Ken Berenger both said.
Absolutely.
He said it first. That doesn't mean he said it better.
Amen. Thank you all. I appreciate it. We went a bit long, but it was well worth it. And look forward to seeing you next week. We'll be developing some of these themes further. And as I say, I do hope that I can get further guidance on being able to discuss the S4 beyond that press release and those 2 slides. Stay tuned. More good stuff happening, including there's plans for that crowdfunding, but I will not take further time. We will discuss it next week.
All right.
Have a good night.